All right, so now we're talking about agent outputs. A lot of times we have the agent doing something for us, and then we need to dynamically pass that output somewhere. And sometimes we also want it to be split up and structured. So I'll talk about this stuff, right? Because I remember not really understanding what this was, but it's super, super simple. So we'll start simple and we'll get into the stuff in a sec. But, anyways, the typical way we're interacting with our agent. Oh, geez, sorry. This is like stuck on my mouse. Anyways, so I say hi. By default, the agent's output is always going to be called JSON.output. So in here we have over here the output, right? And so if I want to directly use this, for now we're just going to say we're doing a set field, and I'm just going to say like agent's response. We drag this in. It's the output from the AI agent, and it's going to be called JSON.output. If you want to be, like let's say we need to reference it later. So we have this. We're getting the agent's output right here, as you can see. And but let's say later on we need to use it. So let's say we're sending an email or something, and let me send a message. And over here, what we want to do is include the message of the agent. We want this to be the agent's response. So what we would do is change this to an expression, and we could drag it in from this side. And as you can see, it's no longer JSON.output, because we know that if you use JSON, if you use $JSON, that means that you're pulling in from the immediately previous node. So right now what we're doing is we're referencing .item.json.output from the AI agent node right here. So that's exactly what we get down here. But anyways, so by default, it's going to be JSON.output. But let's say we're connecting a structured output parser. So what this is doing is basically it's going to help us split out this information into different pieces. So let me say here the use case is we're going to be, adding a row in a sheet. So let me just choose a random sheet here. We'll do tool testing, sheet 1. Okay, perfect. So we have name, email, bio. We will basically come into here, right? And we'll say, okay, so my name is Nate. My email is nate@example.com. And I am 22 years old. So we'll send that off. And what happens now is we have okay. Actually, we need to add a system prompt. So we're just going to say extract the name, email, and bio, because it just responded to Nate with, hello, Nate, how can I assist you? So now it knows what to do. So we'll test that off again. It should now be saying, like, obviously it's going to error, but now it's saying, okay, here's the name, here's the email, here's the bio. And so what we would do in this tool now is we have values to send over. So we want to populate these values with, okay, Nate at example.com, and then 22 years old. But we can't reference this information because if we try to drag it in dynamically, it's all in one item. It's all in one field. So the idea of a structured output parser is to split this up into 3 different pieces. And we do that by using this and making it JSON, basically. So, in here we have, if we switch it to JSON, we're seeing the outputs all in one field, but we want to split this up into an object with multiple key value pairs. So this is what it's going to look like, right? We'll put this in here, you'll notice right here we have memory and we have tool. We need to connect a structured output parser somehow, and it doesn't go to memory, it doesn't go to tool. So we're going to go in here, we're going to check this on, so require specific output format. Now we have a new item that pops up here, or a new thing we can connect to, and now we can drag in that output parser. In the output parser, we have basically, you could generate from JSON example, and I'll show you what that looks like. Copy this real quick. It generates a schema from an example JSON object. So we could say, okay, well, we have the state is California, and now we're getting these cities. But I typically like to just define it below, and we have basically, like, we can say what the objects are, what's inside of each of them. So I'm going to copy this back, or paste this back in. So now we're looking for an object, or we're going to output an object, and here are the properties. The first one is name, it's string, and you're looking for the full name of the user. The next one is email, it's a string, email format. We're looking for the email of the user, and then so on with the phone, right? Although we could say that this is a number variable type. We'll switch that and see what happens. The phone number of the user, and then required, we want all 3 of these fields to be output, right? So now I'm just going to send that query again. It's going to hit the structured output parser, and we'll see if it did it correctly. This sent over nothing because we had an expression in here. So let me just change that back to fixed for now. But now we can see, perfect. So we have the JSON, except for we have to change that up because phone, it really should be bio. Um, Anyways, so real quick, I'm just going to come in here, change one of the objects we're looking for, or one of the properties we're looking for. So instead of phone, changing it to bio, this is going to be a string because it's no longer a phone number, and we're just saying the biography, the bio of the user. Okay, so that's perfect. We just got to change it down here as well. So save that. We'll run it again. And now I hope you guys can see the value that we're getting this split out into different objects. So name, email, bio. If we go to schema, it'll be easier to see name, email, bio, or table, right? And it's still within a field called output, but now there's items within it. So now we'd be able to get in here and drag in, okay, here's the name, here's the email, here's the bio, super easy. And then we could hit test step, push that over to Sheets, and we'd get a success message basically saying, okay, we updated the sheet with this row. So here's the row that got put into our Google Sheet. Cool. So that's why we need to split it up, right? And we could also do something like we need to split it into subject and email. So this one is we have the subject, we have the email body, and then we're getting this. Let me just delete that node. We'll change the system prompts in here to say, I'm just going to say create an email, and we'll see if it's able to intuitively create a subject in an email because of the output parser. So I'm going to say, write an email to Frank telling him that I won't be coming to work today because I'm sick. Okay, so we'll send that off. It's going to hit the output parser. We can see, perfect, we got a subject, which is sick leave notification, and then we have the actual email body. And obviously why this is helpful is because then we come in here and we want to send an email, and we can drag in the subject right there and the actual email body right there. Obviously we need to get a 2, but now we have this split up in a way where we can put them into different parameters to hit that API of Gmail and actually send this message correctly. So cool. That's how that works, right? And now the other thing I want to talk about is when you click onto this output parser, you're going to see item list, structured output parser, and auto fixing. So structured output parser is the ones we just talked about, right? Like making JSON and then defining the properties within it. Item list returns the results as separate items. So I think I already made an example in the community. So I will put the link within this classroom section so you can go look at how this works. But this is if you're just specifically looking for a list of items. Yeah, and then auto fixing, I haven't had too many use cases where I actually need to use this because this uses AI, but it automatically fixes the output if it's not in the correct format. So you can see if you click on this, first of all, you need to connect the chat model. So it uses AI to look at what's coming through and then output parse it, but you have to connect an output parser to it. So essentially we'd just be connecting this back in. So you'd want to use this. Here, I'll just run it again so you can see that it's working. So it's just going to use AI to look at it again and then output parse. So we got the exact same thing, subject, email body. We would not need this in this case because we understand the schema coming through into this parser is going to be an email body is a string and a subject is a string, which is just, words basically. Now, if you were sending through data that was going to be unpredictable and you weren't always aware of the data types or, exactly the properties and how they would be configured, then you'd want to use auto fixing to have the AI look at it a little bit. This node wraps another output parser. If the first one fails, it calls an LLM to fix the format. So that's what it's doing. I will say I typically don't have to use that unless it's very, very unpredictable schema. Now, something similar with this, if you use an OpenAI node, a message model node. So let's say we're doing the exact same thing. Let me just grab this, right? So write an email to Frank telling him that I won't be coming to work. We can, let me just choose a chat model real quick in here. We'll just do Forum Mini. We'll just hit that in there. Oops, that's not what we want. I don't think I actually copied that. Okay, whatever. Write an email to Frank telling him I won't be coming to work because I am sick. Okay. So this is purely for testing purposes. I would obviously say usually the user message is dynamic, like you're talking to ChatGPT in the window, and then you would add a system message, which would be like, hey, here's your role. You are a email assistant, okay? So if we hit test step, we can see what we're going to get is a subject, sick leave, and then we have the actual email body. But once again, we have that same issue where now if we wanted to drag this into, a Gmail node, we're only getting one item back, so it's not split up. So the same thing is like the structured output parser. We would just over here put output content as JSON, and now we're going to get a JSON like property that has different things. So here we have a to, a subject, and a body. So it did this pretty intelligently, but sometimes in here you'll have to say like output the following parameters, separately. And then you would say like, okay, I want a to, I want a subject, and I want an email body, and I want those three things separately. So if I came in here and I actually got rid of the to, I think it would probably get rid of the to in its output. So we'll see. So yeah, now we're just getting subject and email body because we defined that in the system message. So that is looking at outputs and how that works. I hope that maybe cleared up some stuff or gets you fired up to start building some agents. So thanks, guys.